Are Your Lights On? Was written by two Americans, Donald Goss and Gerald Weinberg. While these names might not be household names to everyone, they're highly respected figures in their fields. Donald Goss taught at the State University of New York, specializing in complex systems design and development. He also consulted for major corporations on organizational transformation. Gerald Weinberg, however, was even more distinguished. He was a true pioneer in computer data processing. In 1997, he was inducted as one of the first 5 members of the Computer Hall of Fame. To put this in perspective, even today this prestigious institution has only 20 members, including luminaries like Bill Gates and Dell CEO Michael Dell. Weinberg's influence is profound. He authored over 30 technical books that have reached readers worldwide. Are Your Lights On? Represents their consolidated wisdom on how to think about and solve problems. The seemingly quirky title refers to the idea that problem-solving occurs in stages and levels, each with its own characteristics and potential pitfalls. Sometimes when we find problems particularly challenging, it's not just because they're inherently difficult, but because we're using the wrong approach or falling into these traps. The authors envision this book as a flashlight or lamp, illuminating these pitfalls as we navigate through problem-solving journeys, preventing us from getting stuck in solution dead ends. Published in 1982, the book has enjoyed over 40 years of continuous publication and multiple editions, marking it as a true bestseller. However, it stands apart from most classic bestsellers. Instead of being a hefty tome, it's a slim handbook of less than 100 pages, comprising about 20 interconnected stories. What makes it truly remarkable is how these seemingly simple, accessible stories contain profound insights and even philosophical wisdom, earning its status as a classic. For my analysis, the book organizes our encounter with problems into 3 main phases: encountering problems, solving problems, and re-examining problems. What are the most common traps we fall into during the first phase? What effective thinking methods and techniques can we employ during the problem-solving phase? And in the re-examination phase, shouldn't we ask ourselves, do we really want to solve this problem at all? Phase 1. Encountering problems, the first major trap. What's the most common trap when encountering problems? When most people face a problem, what's their immediate reaction? For instance, if someone tells you a light is broken, what would you do? Most likely you'd say, I'll go fix it right away. However, the authors suggest that this immediate reaction, jumping straight into solution mode, might be a major misconception. You might wonder, isn't solving problems exactly why we encounter them? How could this be a misconception? The authors illustrate this with a telling example. In a newly constructed office building, the elevators were running extremely slowly, causing long queues during rush hours. As complaints mounted, the building owner had to address the issue. They assigned Peter, the building's mail carrier, to solve the problem. Like most people would, Peter immediately started working on the solution. His reasoning was simple. People were complaining about long wait times, so how could he make the wait feel shorter? He decided to install mirrors next to each elevator. Why? Because people would naturally check their appearance or fix their clothing, making the wait time feel less tedious. This solution seemed to work. Complaints decreased. The owner, impressed by this low-cost solution, even gave Peter a raise. However, new problems soon emerged. People started drawing graffiti on the mirrors, leading to complaints about the building's deteriorating environment. Peter then had to address these new complaints. He thought that since people were fundamentally frustrated with waiting times, whether they looked in mirrors or at graffiti didn't really matter. So he placed colored markers next to the mirrors, encouraging creative expression. This actually made waiting for elevators more entertaining, and complaints dropped again. Peter seemed quite skilled at finding creative solutions. However, it wasn't long before another problem arose. Some tenants strongly disliked the graffiti environment and filed complaints with the city's beautification committee. Peter faced yet another problem to solve. This scenario might feel familiar. We often encounter problems, immediately work hard to solve them, sometimes even innovatively, and feel accomplished when we do. But then new problems emerge, and we keep solving them. The truly unfortunate part is that while we think we're being productive like Peter, we might actually be creating problems that didn't exist before, merely satisfying our own sense of accomplishment. Why? The story continues. During a routine maintenance check, technicians discovered that a collector in the elevator's main control box had been damaged by rodents, significantly reducing the elevator's speed. Once they repaired the collector, the elevator returned to normal speed, and the congestion disappeared. This revelation shows how all of Peter's previous efforts were essentially meaningless. Why did his creative solutions and time investments ultimately prove futile? This happened because when encountering problems, immediately jumping into solution mode can lead to a thinking trap. The real issue wasn't addressing the problem first, but defining it properly. What does it mean to define a problem? It means that when we encounter a problem, instead of immediately trying to solve it, we should ask ourselves several questions to find the real answer. What type of problem is this? Who has the problem? What exactly is the problem? In other words, what's the true essence of the problem? The importance of problem definition. Defining a problem properly involves asking crucial questions, particularly about who actually has the problem. In the elevator story, Peter received the problem as complaints from tenants that the building owner wanted addressed. From his perspective, it seemed like the tenant's problem. However, if he hadn't rushed to implement solutions and had thought more carefully, he might have realized that slow elevator operation was more likely a maintenance issue, a problem for elevator technicians to solve. If Peter had initially defined it as a maintenance problem, most of his subsequent issues could have been avoided. This answer might seem obvious in hindsight, but solutions often appear simple only after they're discovered. In our daily lives, we frequently act without properly defining problems, leading us to spend excessive time heading in the wrong direction. Consider this modern parallel. A social media manager notices declining engagement rates on their posts. Their immediate reaction might be to change posting times or use more trending hashtags. However, if they first define the problem properly, they might realize it's actually a content quality issue or a shift in their audience's preferences. The authors emphasize that we often fall into this trap of misidentifying problems. Like a person who, upon reading that their smartphone usage is affecting their sleep, decides to stop reading such articles rather than addressing their phone habits. We see similar patterns in various scenarios. A business receiving negative online reviews decides to disable comments rather than improve their service. A student performing poorly on tests focuses on changing the grading system rather than their study habits. A team missing project deadlines adds more status meetings instead of addressing underlying workflow issues. These situations all mirror Peter's approach, taking action without proper problem definition or unconsciously working under incorrect problem definitions. The more effort we put in the wrong direction, the further we stray from real solutions. The problem-solving phase. When we move into actually solving problems, we typically focus on costs, resources, and methodologies. While these are important considerations, the authors suggest two often overlooked but crucial questions that should come first. Who should solve this problem? What is the source of this problem? Let's explore these questions through a powerful example from education. Imagine you're a university professor with 12 students in your class. One day, you enter the classroom to find a student smoking, despite others' visible discomfort. The student seems oblivious to their impact. What would you do? Would you sternly reprimand the student and demand they stop? Or establish new class rules prohibiting smoking? The book presents an unexpected approach. Do nothing. Why? The professor let the students handle it themselves. When they realized the teacher wouldn't intervene, the students gathered to discuss the issue with their smoking classmate. The smoker explained they needed something to help them focus during class. Through discussion, they reached an innovative solution. Each student would bring unique snacks to share weekly, providing an alternative focus point. This not only solved the smoking issue, but enhanced class camaraderie. The real insight isn't in how the students solved the problem, but in how the professor did nothing. Most of us would immediately think, I must solve this. However, the authors emphasize that in the problem-solving phase, we should first consider who is best positioned to solve the problem. If someone else is better suited to handle it, we should let them take the lead. Understanding problem sources. The second crucial aspect of problem-solving involves understanding where problems originate. Think about this. When taking an exam, knowing which professor wrote the questions often helps you understand what kind of answers they're looking for. Similarly, if you know which executive proposed a particular initiative, you can better grasp its intended outcomes. In other words, even identical problems might require different solutions depending on who raised them. In reality, when we're trying to solve a problem, there are usually countless possible solutions. How do we choose the most effective one? Testing each option would be tremendously time-consuming. The authors suggest that understanding who created or identified the problem often reveals their underlying interests and concerns, helping us focus on the most promising solutions. Re-examining problems. Now that we understand the importance of defining problems before solving them, and know to consider both who should solve them and where they originated, are we fully equipped to handle problems? The authors say no. There's one crucial phase that most people overlook: re-examining the problem itself. We need to ask, do we really want to solve this problem? This is where the book's true value lies. It raises questions we might never have considered, yet are critically important. These questions fill gaps in our thinking and reveal blind spots. Most people believe that being good at solving problems makes someone excellent. However, this isn't always true. We value problem-solving ability because we assume important problems have important solutions. But the authors argue that while problems might be important, their solutions aren't always meaningful. Consider this story. A cryptography expert received an assignment to break a diplomatic code used in European communications. The problem was significant, and the expert spent 18 months researching, using advanced computers for analysis, finally cracking the code. After another 8 months of decryption, they eagerly opened the messages only to find mundane records of wine purchases, whiskey orders, and cigarette counts, completely trivial information. This illustrates how a seemingly important problem might have an insignificant solution. This concept extends to broader life questions. We might think issues of wealth, status, and reputation are crucial, but are their solutions equally important? Are we pursuing what we truly want, or just following others' pursuits without questioning our own motivations? Beyond these philosophical considerations, sometimes solving a problem might actually make things worse. It's like removing a sword from a wound without medical preparation. While the wound is serious, removing the sword immediately could be fatal. The solution could be worse than the problem. The problem solver's paradox. Sometimes, those actively solving problems might actually be creating them. Consider the early days of computer viruses. Antivirus software companies charged for their products, so they actually benefited from the existence of viruses. In some cases, these companies were allegedly creating viruses themselves to justify their existence and value. This parallels the book's example of disarmament committees. They work on reducing military forces but don't actually want to eliminate all armies, as that would eliminate their own purpose. Similarly, many management layers and organizations actively create problems to maintain their relevance. Returning to the title. The book's title, Are Your Lights On?, metaphorically asks whether you're aware of these traps in the 3 phases of problem solving. If you're mindful of them, you've illuminated the path to wise problem solving. Summary. The book's insights can be organized into 3 main levels. Problem encounter phase. Don't immediately jump into solving problems. First, define the problem clearly. Understand whose problem it is. Identify the problem's true essence. Problem-solving phase. Identify the most appropriate person to solve the problem. Remember that the person who tied the knot isn't always the best one to untie it. Understand where the problem originated. This understanding can help eliminate unnecessary exploration and find solutions more efficiently. Problem re-examination phase. Ask whether we really want to solve this problem. Remember that important problems don't always need important solutions. Sometimes, not solving a problem is better than solving it. Consider whether your solution might create worse problems. This framework provides a comprehensive approach to problem solving that goes beyond simple solution finding to encompass a deeper understanding of problems themselves and their broader implications.